right, last question comes from Kevin. I have a 3-month-old and opened her an UGMA account, America Funds through my FA. The day we got her Social Security number. Oh, that's nice. I have a bi-weekly draw going into the account, and I thought this was a smart idea until about 2 months ago I'm realizing the fund we're in charges 5% of any amount added to the account. Example, when my 100 goes in, 5 is automatically taken out, and this is in addition to the fee of 1.14%. I've also learned that there aren't really any tax advantages, and it could even hurt her financial aid status when applying for college. I know about 529 plans, but I don't want these funds restricted to only education. My question, is the fee structure typical of an UTMA? Why shouldn't I just open a separate investment account in my name with much lower fees and give it to her or use on her when she's old enough? All
right. So the acronym we're talking about here is a Uniform Gifts to Minors account or a Uniform Transfers to Minors account. UGMA and UTMA, people use those pretty interchangeably a lot. So I actually like that he asked the question that way. They are technically different, but what you open, they're largely going to have the same structure. So is this fee structure typical? No, this is not based on the type of account.
I've never heard of this.
So what you're buying right now, and the reason that you're paying 5% is what you set up at the top, which is American Funds through your financial advisor. You are buying what's called an A-share mutual fund. And that is building a sales charge. That is how your financial advisor is getting paid on selling you those funds. So that has nothing to do with the structure of the account or the fact that it is a transfer into her name. If you opened that account with any low-cost broker, a Schwab, a Fidelity, an Ameritrade, an E-Trade, you're not going to have that same thing, but you're also going to be on your own for making those investment choices. So if you wanted to buy individual stocks or low-cost index funds, ETFs, you can absolutely do that in those accounts, but you're going to be taking more and more of that responsibility for managing the funds versus having the financial advisor provide you the
Is that
advice.
5%? Is that called a load? Is this different than a load, or is this a load?
This is a sales charge.
Okay.
And so there's a couple different versions of it. Like a C-share fund doesn't have the big upfront charge, but has a much higher ongoing operating expense because they're going to pay that advisor 1% a year instead of 5% upfront. So most of the time on an A-share fund, he's getting 5% up front and then a trail of 25 basis points, which is in there as a 12B1 fee.
Oh, we love 12B1 fees. Those are marketing fees.
Yep, it's a marketing fee.
Which is bananas to me. I'm literally spitting. It's so bananas to me that someone at a mutual fund company was like, you know what? We're gonna call it a fee, a 12B1 fee, and we're gonna make our investors pay for us to market the fund.
But it's really not a marketing fee. It's going to the advisor. The marketing is the advisor that sold it.
Well, it's still stupid.
If I can chime in here just for one little additional thought, because I mean, I'm fully on board. These fees are absurd. But having some experience in this realm, like I have 2 younger daughters, they're 12 and 13 now, and we opened up 529s for them when they were born. And around 6 or 7 years old, we opened up individual brokerage accounts for them. They were with Scottrade.
Yeah.
Scottrade was recently acquired by TD Ameritrade, so now we're all with TD Ameritrade. But the fact of the matter is they have UTMA accounts with TD Ameritrade, each individually, that function just like savings accounts.
Yeah.
They don't, I mean, I guess they technically do have a savings account somewhere, but we don't really use them. Instead, we put all of this money into their brokerage accounts, and every couple times a year we'll buy a new stock for their portfolio. Now, these are not these brokerage accounts are not 529s. They're not tied to anything other than just like an UTMA savings, which does mean, as the listener mentioned, that could, not necessarily will, but it could affect their qualifications for student loans down the road. Now, my perspective on that is that we have a system in place here that has a million different ways students can get financing for school. I mean, that is plainly obvious based on the $1.5 trillion of debt that is outstanding today. I'm not going to worry about $5,000, $6,000, or $7,000 that they've accumulated in savings via investing. I'm not worried about that potentially offsetting any financial aid questions there. I would rather they have the lifelong lesson of how powerful investing in. Let's cross that student loan bridge when we come to it. I'm certain we can cross it. I never even considered that as a factor in making the decision to open those accounts for those girls.
So what does Kevin do? Go back to his financial advisor and say, what the heck, buddy? Get me out of that.
Well, yeah. So I mean, honestly, I would take this as an opportunity to review what are you paying and for what across the board with your financial advisory relationship. And not to say that paying fees or paying an advisor for advice is bad, but you should understand what you're paying and why. And this is clearly an example of maybe where you didn't understand how you were paying for that advisor's services. The other thing that I'll go back to just a little bit is that he mentioned, well, just open an investment account in my name and give it to her later. That's totally fine. It remains on your books. It remains your asset. I think if you're going to keep it in a separate bucket, that's fine. But yeah, with these UTMA accounts, you are transferring legal ownership at the age of majority, which is either going to be 18 or 21 in most states. That is unrestricted access to that money at that on that day, on that birthday. If the kid says, "Give me all that money, Mr. Advisor or Mr. Brokerage House," they have to. Now,
Kevin, raise your kids right.
Now so you're talking about a 3-month-old. And you have no understanding at this point of whether or not that is a financially astute 3-month-old. And I don't think there is a way to make that judgment.
Well, you keep up listening to Motley Fool Answers.
You're
going to be pretty financially astute,
go.
Ross.
Again,
I think that's safe to assume.
My baseline as an optimist, I hope that they are a very financially responsible student. But I know plenty of folks, probably myself included at 18, that shouldn't have been handed a big pot of money. So be careful with the UTMA because if it's going to grow, hopefully, and it could be significant.